Welcome students. In today's class, we are going to read about the digestive system of our body, which is the system that is actually helping us to break down the food material that we are eating, which is in very complex form into very simple substances or very simple form that can be used by our body for various purposes like energy production or production of new cells and etc. But before going to the details of the digestive system, we need to know about the nutrients that are making up our food. What are the nutrients? Nutrients are actually the components of the food that are used by the body in one way or other or in some way. So the nutrients that are present in our body or in the food that we eat every day are actually 5 types. First 3, which are actually required in large quantity, those are called the macronutrients, and those include the carbohydrate or the starch or the sugar, the proteins and the lipids or the fats. And these 3 are called the macronutrient because these are required in large amount by our body. And there are also the vitamins and the minerals that are not required in such large quantity by our body but required in very small amount by our body. But although they are required in small amount, they are very important for our body. So these are called the micronutrients. Nutrition is the process by which the obtained or the synthesized food is utilized by the body. How the body is actually using the food that we are eating. Now, the process of nutrition actually needs the process of digestion because without the food being digested, that cannot be used by our body. So the 5 processes or 5 steps in digestion are, the first step is called the ingestion or taking in the food or eating the food. The second step is digestion. In digestion, the complex food material is broken down into simpler or smaller substances which can be used by our body. This breakdown process is actually happening with the help of many chemicals that are present in the entire digestive system of our body, and this process is called the digestion. The third step is called the absorption, and absorption includes that the digested food needs to get absorbed by the blood so that it can reach every cell of our body, because blood is the only thing that can reach every cell of our body. So the digested food needs to be absorbed by the blood so that it can reach to the different cells of our body. The fourth step is called assimilation. After being absorbed by the blood and reaching different cell, the cell is actually utilizing that food or nutrient for some purpose, either for replicating, making new cells, or for preparing us for some work or producing energy. So that is called as assimilation. And the last process is called egestion. Egestion includes the removal of the undigested food material from our body. The food that we eat, all of them is not digested. Some of them remain undigested, and that undigested food is removed from our body through the process of egestion. So these are the 5-step process of digestion. This is the food journey that our food takes every day and every time we eat. Now, if we are looking at the digestive system that is present in our body, it is starting from the mouth and it is continuing like a long coiled tube structure, and it is ending at the anus. And there are different structures that are present in between, and we need to know about those structures in detail. Now, the digestive system is actually having 2 broad categories or 2 broad divisions. One is called the alimentary canal, that is starting from the mouth, then it is continuing as the esophagus, then it is continuing into the stomach, and then into the small intestine, then the large intestine, and then ending at the anus. So this is a long continuous tube structure that is present. So these are the parts of the alimentary canal. These are the parts through which the food is passed. But there are some glands that are present alongside the alimentary canal that is secreting some liquid substance, some chemical that is helping in the digestion of the food. But through these glands or through this structure, the food does not pass. These glands include the salivary gland, which is present joining with the mouth, then the liver, which is present beside the stomach, and the pancreas, which is present below the stomach. These three are the digestive glands which are secreting some substance which are helping the food to digest, but through this path the food is not passing. So the digestive system is having two parts, the alimentary canal and the digestive gland. The first part of the digestive system is the mouth. It helps in the process of ingestion or taking of food, and it is bordered by the upper lip and the lower lip on the outside, as we can see, and food is broken down into small pieces with the help of the teeth and mixed with saliva with the help of the tongue in the mouth, and then the food goes into the next part of the digestive system. Now we are going to look into the types of teeth that are present in the mouth of the human being. We are having actually 4 types of teeth in our mouth. The first type is called the incisor, which is actually the 4 teeth that are present at the front side on the upper jaw and the lower jaw. This incisor is actually for biting and tearing the food, and incisor is having a flat base, that as we can see in the picture. Now on each jaw, on both sides of the incisor, there are 2 canines. The canines are actually the teeth which have a sharp end, and canines are used for tearing the food, like tearing some meat or something. So canines are present only in non-vegetarian animals. Canine is for tearing the meat. Then on both sides of the canine, on each jaw, there are premolars that are present, which are used for the grinding and biting the food. And on both sides of the premolars, there are molars present, which are also used for crushing and grinding the food. These are the 4 types of teeth that are present in both of our jaws, upper jaw and lower jaw. All the teeth in the human being are not appearing together at once. When we are in baby condition, or when we are at our very early ages, the teeth that are present in our body is called the primary teeth. And as we can see in the picture, in the primary teeth, the premolars are absent. The premolars are the teeth that are part of the secondary teeth or the primary or the permanent teeth structure that is present in the human being. So in babies, the premolars are not present. Premolars are present only in the secondary teeth structure. And also 1 pair of molars are also absent from each part of the jaw in the primary teeth as well. Now the primary teeth or milk teeth will fall after a particular age, and then the secondary teeth or the permanent teeth will appear. And in the right hand side picture, the different shapes of the incisor, canine, premolar and molar is also given, and the functions are also given. As we can see that the incisor is used for biting of pieces of food. Canine is also for biting and tearing of the meats. Premolars are for tearing and grinding and crushing, and molars are also for chewing and grinding. Now we will look into the structure of a tooth. If we are seeing the interior structure of a tooth, it looks something that is shown in the picture. Now the whole structure of a tooth or whole body of the tooth has 3 parts. First is called the crown, the base is called the root, and in between the crown and the root there is a very small portion or narrow portion present, which is called the neck. Then the crown is actually the portion which we can see from the outside. The part of the teeth that we can see from the outside is called the crown. Now the part of the teeth that is present inside the gum, that is called the root, and in between the crown and the root there is a very narrow portion present, which is called the neck. Now the outer covering of the crown, that is the white portion that we can see, is called the enamel, and enamel is the hardest substance of the human body. Then after the enamel, the main portion or the bulk portion of the teeth is actually made up of a part which is called the dentin. Dentin is actually not the hardest substance. It is softer than the enamel, but it is harder than a bone, and it has cytoplasmic strands. Cytoplasm is a liquid material. It has water and some soluble salts. So the dentin is having cytoplasmic strands or some fibers of cytoplasm, as we can see, or threads of cytoplasm, as we can see in the picture. Now the cementum is the structure that is fixing the tooth in the root position, in proper position. As we can see that the enamel part is actually meeting the cementum at a particular portion. So the junction of the enamel and cementum is actually the neck portion of the tooth. So cementum is actually acting as the cement. So it is fixing the teeth in the root in proper particular position. Now the innermost part of the tooth is called the pulp, and pulp is the soft portion of the tooth because it has the connection of the blood vessels and the nerves and the lymph vessels, etc. It is particularly a connective tissue that is actually holding the whole thing together. So it is having the connection of blood vessel, lymphatic vessel and nerve fibers. The second structure that is present in our mouth is the tongue, and tongue is the sense organ or organ of taste because it has some taste buds on the surface, which with the help of which we can take the different taste, or we can sense the different tastes. We can sense hot and cold, and we can also sense the sour, the bitter, the salty and the sweet food. Tasting the food and has the taste bud is the first function of the tongue, and the second function is it is actually mixing the food with the saliva, and after crushing and grinding with the teeth and being mixed with the saliva, the food will form into a circular form, which is actually called the bolus, and bolus is actually very useful or very easy to swallow. And tongue is also used for cleaning the teeth, and without the tongue we cannot speak, so it is also helping us in speaking process. In the mouth there is 3 pairs of salivary glands that are present, that are actually keeping our inside part of the mouth moist and watery by producing the watery saliva. And these 3 glands are called the parotid gland, which has a duct that is opening in the upper gum or upper jaw, the submandibular gland and the sublingual gland. Those are actually having the ducts at the lower jaw or lower part or the base part of our tongue. What are the functions of the salivary gland? The salivary gland is producing saliva, which is acidic, and it is actually where the digestion of the food starts with the help of the saliva, because the saliva has an enzyme which is called the salivary amylase or pectin or ptyalin, and this ptyalin is actually helping to digest the starch or sugar or carbohydrate. It is also facilitates speaking and swallowing. It moistens the food, it makes the food soft, it acts as a solvent. The food gets mixed, forms the bolus with the help of the tongue. It digests the starch with the help of ptyalin. It destroys germs. There are some anti-germ, antibacterial substance that is present in saliva, and it aids in the water balance. It helps our mouth from preventing from dehydration. So it keeps our mouth inside of the mouth in a water balanced condition. After leaving the mouth, the food enters into a long pipe-like structure that is connecting the mouth with the stomach, and this long pipe-like structure is called the esophagus. Now through the esophagus, the food moves through a process which is called the peristalsis. Peristalsis is actually the alternate contraction and relaxation of the muscles that are present on the walls of the esophagus. And by the movement of the muscles, the food travels from the mouth to the stomach through the esophagus by rhythmic movement of the muscles of the walls of the esophagus. Now, after traveling down the mouth through the esophagus, the next destination for the food is the stomach. Now, in the stomach, there is the second phase of digestion that is going to happen, because there are glands inside the stomach which is secreting the gastric juice. Now the gastric juice is actually made up of three things: water, HCl and pepsin. Now HCl is actually an acid, as we can say. It is a strong acid. It kills all the germs that are present in the food. It prevents the food from rotting, and it also activates the pepsin that is actually present in an inactive form which is called the pepsinogen. As the food reaches the stomach, the gastric juice is starting to secrete. And pepsin, after it is getting converted into its active form, it converts the proteins that are present in the food to peptones. So the protein that was present in a very complex form, it has been divided, or it has been broken down into simpler form, which is called the peptone. The renin that is also present in the stomach, it converts the casein to the card, and food mixed with the digestive juices is called the chyme. So the chyme then transfers or then traverses to the next part of the digestive system, which is the small intestine, and we will see about the small intestine in the next class.